Welcome to another episode of Stacking Sats. Today's episode features Andy Schoonover at CrowdHealth, which stacks sats by giving Americans a community-powered and Bitcoin-powered alternative to health insurance. Before we get into the episode, today's show is sponsored by Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AI and humans to create better, faster, less expensive transcripts. Today's show is also sponsored by CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth was created to get rid of the headaches of health insurance and give you a better solution for your healthcare needs. You can learn more about Stackwork and CrowdHealth by clicking the links in the show notes. Andy, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk about CrowdHealth and the product you're building here. But before we get into the specifics of it, I'd love to learn more about your background. And maybe you could start just informing listeners why you decided to take on this venture in the first place. What was it about healthcare that you thought needed to be fixed?
Yeah, this is my second healthcare company, and after the first one, I thought I'd never do it again. Healthcare is hard. Lots of regulatory, a lot of rent seekers that are very well entrenched in the industry, and so it is. It's a hard one to get into. Fortunately, the first one went well. Came off of that one and didn't have health insurance because most of us, at least in the United States, get health insurance through our employer. And so I went over to healthcare.gov, also known as Obamacare. I thought it was my only other option, and got a plan. And I joke, it worked until I had to use it. My little one was having recurring ear infections. And so we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor who told us that she needed to get a surgery to correct a hole in her eardrum. So we went and got that surgery. It was 15 minutes. Got the bill, it was $8,000, and was just blown away that it was going to be $8,000 for a 15-minute bill, or 15-minute procedure. And I was like, okay, well, this is what health insurance is for. Like, this is the whole point. I'm not going to worry too much about it. And then a few weeks later, I got another note that said my health insurance wasn't going to pay for it because it was medically unnecessary. So we went through, 3 rounds of fighting this appeals process. And at the end, they're like, nope, we're not paying for it. And so I had to stroke an $8,000 check to the local hospital. And I was like, man, like, this just isn't working. Like, this health insurance game isn't working. Is that I did a lot more research on this. Like, there was somewhere around 200,000 families were going bankrupt every year in the United States, even though they had health insurance due to health events. And so, I saw a problem. I felt like I had a decent chance of figuring out how to solve it. And so started a company to be like, man, we got to fix this problem. And so that's when it started. We started back in 2021. So we're coming up on 3 years of operation, and so far so good. We've, helped thousands of people save millions of dollars over the last few years. And so it's felt great.
That's awesome. Why is insurance set up in that way where you can go through your insurance experience expecting that you're covered, and then at the moment where you really need it, you find out only then that you're not?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of very few people push back. They just take it because they don't know how to fight the system. So health insurance plans can do this. And unless the people who are getting denied go and fight for their right to get these bills paid, then nothing changes. And even me, like I didn't know. I mean, I fought it with the insurance plan, and the insurance plan was basically like, no, right? But what I should have done is I should have went to the attorney general's office and said, look, this health plan is, they actually said they would do it up front and then decided not to do it. And so I should have went to the authorities and said, this is just not right. But people aren't doing that. And so these insurance plans are getting away with it. And by the way, they are huge funders of lobbyists. And these lobbyists are, in the politicians' offices all the time. And so, they have much more manpower than we do as just individuals. And so we as individuals don't have our freedom kind of taken away from us because these big insurance plans can do, whatever they want. And I think that's just wrong. Um, and so that's why I started the company.
Yeah, it seems like something is fundamentally broken there when it's incumbent on people to, push back and fight their insurers, which are supposed to be, they're supposed to be in a partnership there, collaborating with them. You're a customer of the insurer, and you have to fight them just to get what you're expecting. I mean, even in
Hmm.
industries like the food industry, which I think has many problems of its own, even there though, you have to like disclose certain things on labels to make sure that people don't have to do that digging. So it really strikes me as odd that there's this like uh this industry has existed for so long in such a fundamentally broken way where people must actually take serious action in order to get what they were promised. It seems kind of strange.
Incredibly strange, and who knows what's going on behind, closed doors on some of these things. But I think that, it does all come down to we are as individuals kind of powerless in the situation. And so, what we're trying to build a company that like gives all the power to the people and removes to as much as possible the power away from corporations and into the hands of individuals. And so that's the desire. We have a long way to go, but like that's ultimately the desire. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin too. Like there's no central organization that is dictating what the rules are. And so we're trying to, as we go, decentralize as much as we can to put the decisions in the hands of people as opposed to corporations. So it's one of our, primary missions. And so far it's worked out great. We're not perfect. It's a startup. We're learning things along the way, but for the most part, I think as you kind of look at reviews and things online, we've done a pretty good job of doing that.
Mm-hmm. For those who are not familiar with CrowdHealth, can you give just a high-level explainer of how it works and what makes it different from what someone might otherwise expect from their traditional insurance?
Yeah. So I call it a little bit of like a back to the future. Because, historically for hundreds and probably even thousands of years, we as communities have kind of gathered around people to help people when they are in need, especially if there's a healthcare need. So, but back in agricultural communities, when somebody got hurt, the community would gather around them and harvest their fields, or and do whatever they needed to do to help this person out. And then, over time, corporations and governments have kind of stuck themselves in between us and our neighbors. And so what we are seeing, I think, at least in the United States, is kind of a withering away of that sense of community. Oftentimes we don't even know our neighbors. Whereas 30, 40, 50 years ago, when somebody moved in, you would take them cookies or, bring them a gift or whatever it ends up being. And so, and I think that is a product of we no longer feel like we are responsible for other people in our community, because the government is, or the insurance company is, or something else. And so what we've done is we built this community back up and said, hey, CrowdHealth is not responsible for getting your bills paid. Your community is responsible for getting your bills paid. And so, what does that look like? So, let's just say Kevin, breaks his arm and it's $5,000. We would go to 50 people in the community and say, "Hey, will you give Kevin $100 to help him with his broken arm?" You can say yes, and if you say yes, $100 will go from your CrowdHealth wallet, in essence, to Kevin's CrowdHealth wallet. Um, and if you say no, then CrowdHealth will move on to the next guy and say, "Hey, will you help Kevin?" And so ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have $5,000 in your wallet so that you can then go and pay that bill that you have. Um, and so then the question is like, okay, so it's voluntary. Like, why would I pay Kevin? Um, well, a part of this is, when Kevin asks for money, we'll know if Kevin has said in the last 10 times, yes, 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 yes to other people, or no, 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 no to other people, right? And if you've said yes, 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 then man, Kevin's been a good member of the community. Like I want to help Kevin, right? If you said no, 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 then you've been a pretty crappy member of the community. And so crappy members of the community generally are kind of like not supported all that well, right? Like if you got the guy next door to you who's jamming all night until 4 a.m., with a big party, and then comes over the next day and asks for a bag of sugar, like, or flour or butter or whatever, right? The probability of me having that is probably, much lower than if the person hadn't partied all night the night before, right? Like it's just, we as human nature just act that way. And so 98% of the time that people ask for bills, they get them. Then people say yes, and 100% of the time, the bills have been submitted to the community. The community has ultimately paid those, helped the member pay those bills. So it's way different than health insurance. It's not a claim going up to an insurance company deciding yes or no, and then paying that claim. This is a bill is going to a community. The community is deciding if they want to help other community members. And if they do, then that bill gets paid. And if they don't, then that bill doesn't get paid. So fortunately, all the bills have gotten paid thus far. And so that's a great part of this. So that's the way that we're different than, your typical health insurance company. Real
Very
quick,
cool.
the beauty of this though is every month, we're not sending money to United Healthcare, this big cold corporation. Like my money goes directly to Kevin to help him with his broken arm. Right. And so we've had situations in the past where, we say, hey, we have this woman in Tennessee. Her name is Abby. She got her fingers cut off in a boating accident. Would you be willing to help her? And so the people who say yes, your money is going directly to Abby to help her with her, surgeries, to, help her with her fingers. We had people come back and say, hey, like I couldn't even imagine like this young girl not having fingers. Like, can I give her, instead of $100, $200? Right. And so it's this human connection that happens between people that is so vastly different than sending something to a health insurance company. I feel great sending my money every month now to somebody, to a Kevin or to an Abby or to whoever, to help them with their health event, as opposed to me sending it to an organization, a corporation that feels like they're screwing me, right? Like I feel every month I sent my money to an insurance company, I felt like I was getting screwed, right? This is a
Mhm.
totally different feeling. I'm helping somebody, which is very, very cool.
That's fascinating. How did you come up with the idea for collecting everyone in this community together? Because this seems like it is not a common idea in any vertical. I haven't heard of many kind of community funded initiatives like this. Like, for auto insurance or for home insurance, you could probably have that same kind of playbook, but I haven't heard to date of anyone trying that. And you're right in the context of other community related things. I hardly know my neighbors, and I think that's pretty normal. And today at least, and I think there is like we've seen the community bonds in cities and towns kind of wither away a little bit. And so I'm curious to know, like, what was there a light bulb moment where that clicked for you, where you were like, community is the key to bringing all this together? How did that come about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think it's one I've been asked before, honestly. The idea, the kind of the origination of the idea just came, in a walk with my dog around our neighborhood, honestly. Like, call it divine intervention, call it, perfect, scenario of me thinking about things. I think that we have all been given gifts. And one of my life journeys is to figure out, like, how do I identify what my gift is, and then help the world with my gift, whatever it may be, and some people's gift may be like, being an incredible mom or dad, and other people's gifts are like being incredible bakers or whatever. And I feel like my gift has been coming up with like really simple solutions to really complex problems, right? And that's just been, I feel like, historically my gift. And it's a little bit of like creativity and a little bit of logic, and you kind of stick those two things together and you can come up with some really kind of cool ideas. I kind of joke with the team that I have 10 ideas and one of them is great and the other are terrible, right? Like you guys need to help me figure out what is the great one and what are the terrible ones, right? Because all of them sound like great ideas coming out of my mouth. And then as you kind of think about it, you're like, yeah, that's dumb. So, maybe this is one of those great ideas. And so, I think it was just honestly, it's nothing probably from me. It's just a gift that I've been given. And, it was walking my dog one day. I was like, what if we could do this? And it iterated. Anytime you get a good idea, like it iterates to something better. And I think Bitcoin, we can talk about that, when you want to, but like this is just one of those iterations that you get better and better and better as you go and learn more and get new data and things like that. So, it was a great question. Thank you for asking it. It kind of made me think back, 3 years ago to the moment where I'm like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I'd also love to touch on Bitcoin and figure out, how does Bitcoin fit into this equation? Where
Yeah.
is Bitcoin a necessary ingredient to CrowdHealth? Did you discover Bitcoin before deciding to build CrowdHealth? Would love more information on that.
Yeah. It was in the process. I was, I don't know exactly what the timing was, but it was around the time I had started the company or just before. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was having lunch with Jimmy Song, who most of your people listeners know who Jimmy is. Very well respected Bitcoiner, a friend of mine, and was talking to him about it. And he's like, "Man, what? I've always kind of thought the insurance companies sucked because they have this big pool of fiat that is declining in value every year, and so I got to pay more into the pool to you know replace what was lost due to inflation. And I wish you could do that with Bitcoin. And I'm kind of like, let me think about this. Like how do we incorporate Bitcoin into our model? And um, I was kind of originally orange pilled by Jimmy, and so I was like, I would love to figure out how to fix the monetary system along with trying to fix the healthcare system. And if I could incorporate Bitcoin into what we do, the healthcare in the United States is $4.3 trillion. And so that would be, if it were a country, that would be the fourth largest country GDP behind United States, China, Japan, just what the United States spends on healthcare. And I was like, if I could just get a few basis points of that healthcare system to use Bitcoin, like I think that could revolutionize not just the healthcare system, but revolutionize Bitcoin. My biggest problem with Bitcoin has been like, I want to be able to use it easier. Yes, I want to stack sats, and I would never ask people to take from their stack, but I've got this budget every month of all this fiat dollars that I'm paying to people. What if I could start replacing that with Bitcoin being paid to people, and create a more circularity in the Bitcoin economy? That to me is a huge win. And so I kind of have started to incorporate Bitcoin, and I whiffed a couple times to start, to be totally honest with you. Like we tried and it didn't work. And we're trying again with the Breez SDK announcement that we had actually today. You're the first one for me to talk about it. And so we're trying really hard, and I hope the Bitcoin community will look at us and be like, man, these guys are really trying to integrate two very difficult systems, maybe the most complex systems ever created, the financial system and the healthcare system. And these guys are trying really hard to integrate these two things. And so we hope we get a little bit of grace from people when we don't get it perfectly, but we're really trying hard to make those two things integrated.
Yeah. What are existing CrowdHealth members? What are their reactions when you bring up Bitcoin? Like, I imagine there's some members who are not Bitcoiners initially. When you
Yeah.
try and bring these two worlds together, what have reactions been like so far?
Yeah, the non-Bitcoiners are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I think we've tried to. So we actually have two different communities right now. We've got what we call the founders community. They're kind of like the OG community, like they're the first ones that started with CrowdHealth. And we have a Bitcoin community. And so we're rolling out this Breez SDK. In essence, what we're doing is we're paying or we're funding each other over Lightning as opposed to over fiat rails. And so this group is going to fund each other over the Lightning rails, and this group is going to fund each other over the fiat rails. And I think what I hope is that ultimately some of the people in the founding group will be like, man, that's cool. Like, I'm interested in that. The fees are lower over here. We think the actual community expenses will be lower on the Bitcoin side. I want to try that. But to try that, you have to do it over the Bitcoin rails, like over the Lightning rails. So you have to learn more about Bitcoin. The other thing about the Bitcoin community is what we'd like to happen is we're funding it in over rails, right? And then we'd love to figure out doctors in which we can pay over the Lightning rails, right? And so it actually truly is a circular economy there. And what I've told people is like, man, if I can get 1% the first year and 3% the second year and 10% the third, and then grow that community of doctors who will be willing to take Bitcoin. It increases Bitcoin circularity. I'm orange pilling doctors, and I think Bitcoin doctors are better than fiat doctors. And it's just a theory of mine. I don't have any, perfect case studies here, but it's like the people I meet who are Bitcoiners think about the world in terms of like root cause as opposed to just addressing the symptom. And so I want a doctor who is a root cause doctor, right? And so that is what we're really kind of focused on.
Very cool. So I want to make sure I understand this correctly. In the Bitcoin community, everyone's using Bitcoin for everything, and then only at the point of interacting with a doctor that doesn't yet accept Bitcoin, that's the only time where you would turn that into dollars, essentially.
Yeah, and we're rolling that out in probably mid to late January. Could leak into February, but early next year is when we're rolling that out.
Got it. And how does the CrowdHealth business model work? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the huge issues with health insurance is there's just so many perverse incentives. Um, actually, insurance companies make more money when you're sick, and so they have no kind of incentive to keep you healthy. They also have an incentive to decline your bills. So we have a principal agent problem here. Our agent who's supposed to go out and try to find us really good rates actually have an incentive to decline our health events. And so there's just so many perverse incentives within healthcare that we wanted to make it very, very clear and the incentives are aligned. So we get $50 per member per month. That's it. So we have an incentive to grow the community because if we grow the community, we make more money. That's also great for the community because when you have a health event, I now have more people to ask to help you to fund. And so our incentives are perfectly aligned. We want to negotiate those bills for you down as much as possible so that the amount we ask you for every month is as low as possible. That helps us because more people will come to the community if the crowdfunding is low. That helps you because your bill every month or your request every month is really low. So the incentives with that system are perfectly aligned. We think perfectly aligned, and that allows us to now like fight on your behalf to get that bill paid, as opposed to be like your enemy. I'm fighting you to pay my bill. Like it's just the dynamic there is so different. So that's the business model, $50 per month, and it's very, very clear and aligned with the community.
Yeah, I love that alignment of incentives. Why do you think that there aren't other examples, or maybe examples that I don't, but I haven't found any other examples like CrowdHealth in auto or home insurance or any other form of insurance? Why not? Why is it just that you're the
Yeah.
first, or is there a fundamental reason why other aspects of insurance aren't as well suited for this?
Yeah, I mean, so auto insurance, at least in the United States, the way that it works is you have to be insured, actually have insurance to get your car registered. So I have to show up with an insurance card and say, hey, here's my insurance, I'm insured. And so it's government mandated.
Mm.
So ours would not work on on cars because we're not insurance, and so that government mandate doesn't work. On homes, it might be a little better, but not a lot better, because the mortgage companies or the banks who are giving you a mortgage um, require you to have insurance to give you a mortgage, right? So if let's just say I have $100,000 house and I have a $50,000 mortgage and my house burns down, all right, like the mortgage company wants to make sure that I actually can get $50,000 to one, repay them, right, or to build the house so that they still have assets to back their loan. So, I mean, I think there's some other things though that are a little bit more likely. So, life insurance or long-term care insurance or things like that. I think probably are a lot more kind of aligned with what we're doing. I mean, if I were to say what is our next one, and I'm not sure when this is going to be, so nobody hold me to it, but funny enough, I think pet insurance is probably the next one, right? I mean, it's all of our members have pet, or most of our members have pets, and so would you be willing to throw in another, I don't know what it's gonna be, $25 or $50 or whatever a month, right, to get your pet to be able to crowdfund for your pet? I mean, that's not unreasonable. There are less inefficiencies. There are more efficiencies in the pet space than there are in the healthcare space, because in the pet space you pay in cash, right? So there's not a lot of insurance. There's some, and it's growing in the pet space. But once you put that middleman in there who then negotiates on behalf of you, then you don't have an incentive to watch costs. You don't have an incentive to watch the quantity of goods that you consume. And so the free market disappears when you have an insurance company that gets into the game.
Yeah. What's the importance of the Breez SDK? You mentioned you released this announcement today. Talk to me a bit about why that specifically is important to CrowdHealth.
Yeah, so we're as mentioned earlier, we're trying to get Bitcoin to be more involved. We want to do this over the Lightning Network. We had a decision to make. Do we want to go with a custodial model or a non-custodial model? Do we want to go on chain or do we want to go on Lightning? And so I think ultimately what we came down to is we wanted it to be, self-custodied, so non-custodial. That was important to me. If we could make it work. Originally, we were like, oh, we can't make this work. And, ultimately we were like, thank God that Breez does what they do so well, because we can make it work on the self-custody side. The other decision we had was on-chain or off-chain. At the time we were looking at this, the ordinal thing was going on, and it still kind of is. And so the on-chain variation in fees was legitimate. I mean, almost so much that it would make our model useless, like it wouldn't work. And so we were kind of like, okay, we don't want to be kind of enslaved to the on-chain transaction fees. Lightning fees seem to be, a little less, all over the place. And definitely less than the transaction fees we're paying now on the fiat side. And so, ultimately we got to say, okay, I want it self-custody. I want it on Lightning. And so Breez made just tons of sense there. And so, and we integrated Breez into the back end in like a week. Like, it was wicked easy to do. And so it's like, okay, let's do this. And the Breez folks are probably the best Lightning engineers in the space, or at least some of them. And so, after talking to Roy and his group and some of the customization that we needed, it just felt like a really good partnership. And so we're gonna, we got a couple mini little technical hurdles to work through over the next few weeks. None of them which we don't think, all of them we think we can work through, but we're excited to get that going. And I don't know if there's anybody else in healthcare that are doing significant transactions over the Lightning Network. So we're excited to kind of pave the path.
Yeah. Can you speak to the average payment size that you expect to be happening over Lightning?
$100.
I'd love to know more. What's that?
$100.
$100.
The average will be about $100. So we are very well aware that like you can't have monster transactions over the Lightning network, and so there's a limit there. But our average transaction size is under $100. It's actually I think $89, which feels right in line with what we want to do on Lightning. And the other thing too is like once you get more Lightning, more transactions, more volume, the liquidity improves, and so or at least the incentive for liquidity to be there improves because there's now a business case to increase liquidity. And so we think that using Lightning will be a significant upside for us, the network, all around. So we're kind of excited to make an investment, and it's a legitimate investment. I mean, we're going to be spending, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on investing in this, and so we just hope that the Bitcoiners show up, that they'll want to do this. And
Hmm.
also, by the way, it opens up some international for us as well. So, right now we're only in the United States. We've had a big set of people request international. Um, a lot from the UK, a lot from Brazil, Argentina. Like, there's some really crappy health systems. The United States is not the only crappy health system. And so I think at some point, probably over the next 12 to 15 months, we're going to do something internationally. And Lightning allows us to do that without having to worry about fiat rails. So that's pretty exciting too.
Now, is Lightning compatible though with your subscription $50 a month kind of fee? Is that how do you manage that with Lightning?
Yeah. I mean, the good thing, the one good thing maybe about the fiat rails is there is a recurring payment system that is easy, right? Like I can, put in my credit card and every month it just boom pays it, boom, 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 right? Lightning's a little bit more difficult, and so you actually will have to go into the app once a month to, send $50 to us. We're gonna make it super easy, but you are going to have to be a little bit more active in your subscription. I mean, I hope at some point there is a way to make kind of recurring Lightning payments, because I think the recurring nature of just our world would benefit from that. And I think Lightning would benefit from having a recurring feature. Just it's not there yet, but I think everybody I've talked to said we will hopefully get there. Soon. Right now, it's
Yeah,
just gonna be you're gonna have to go in once a month and approve that invoice, basically.
makes sense. Now, if there's other builders listening to this, considering integrating Lightning payments into their business, are there any lessons you've picked up along the way in the process of integrating with Breez and just the studying you've done beforehand? What is your kind of blueprint or framework that you could share for other founders considering adding Lightning payments?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I honestly, I think getting people who understand, Bitcoin and Lightning Network on your side, is the most important thing. I'll be honest. I'm a kindergartner when it comes to this stuff. I sit next to, Parker Lewis on one side and Will Cole and all these guys who like Bitcoin. Jimmy Song. I see him on a regular basis. I use those folks as sounding boards on, how do we do this correctly? What are the things I need to think about? What are the downsides? What are the benefits? Those types of things. And so, and the great thing about the Bitcoin community, man, if you're like looking to push adoption of Bitcoin, they are willing to help you. They are willing to take phone calls. They're willing to help. Like, so my number one recommendation for business owners who are interested in this is reach out to some of these folks, because they are more than willing to help in the vast majority of cases. So don't be shy. Reach out. Show up to your local Bitcoin group. Fortunately, I'm in Austin. We've got an awesome one here, and talk to folks at your local Bitcoin meetup. Because most major large metropolitan cities have one. So I would get involved in that and start using some of those folks as sounding boards.
Yeah. If you were to start CrowdHealth over again today, would you be doing anything differently?
Oh man, that's always hard. Yeah, that's hard. You know what? I wouldn't be doing anything differently than we're currently doing. And it would be hard for me to say like, would you do anything differently? Because I think in life, even every time you fall, you have to figure out how to stand back up, right? Like every time you have something that like whacks you, you like learn from it and like, okay, I'm gonna learn from that. I'm gonna move on. And so I always say that entrepreneurship is just like this continuing, like tripping and getting back up again, trip and get back up until you kind of find the smooth path, because it takes just a long time to find this smooth path. And one of the benefits that we have that's going to be very difficult to replicate what we do is that long path that we've taken over the last 3 years of the trips and falls and learning along the way, um, because it's helped us build a better product. It's helped me build a better business, and so yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for our community members who have seen us trip and fall, a little bit, um, just to, and have seen us through that. So I wouldn't do anything differently. I don't think than what we're currently doing. I feel really good about where we're at as a business.
Yeah. And then one other thing as a business, one thing I think is really interesting about this is you now have this really powerful moat around the business because you have this community, this like tight knit community that is continuing to help each other out. It is so much harder from a business standpoint to think about disrupting that is a lot harder than if you had individual, one-to-one customer to business relationships where customers were kind of siloed and kept apart. You now have customers interacting with one another, and I think that's
Yeah.
really clever. I think there's a really powerful business moat there.
Yeah, and we're trying to do more than that. Like, we're trying to do more. Like, how do we get our members engaging with one another? So there's actually a more of a community component of this. I mean, I think we have this on, so for example, Twitter. Twitter, we've got this great Bitcoin community, and they all interact with each other. And they're like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? CrowdHealth's great. This didn't work well. This worked great. What do you guys think about this? And so that's super fun. Like that's super fun to have that community. And I think the Bitcoin community, while we all say that we want to be, self-sovereign, I think the best community members are sovereign individuals, right? Like I think if we take care of our own stuff, we are much better community members, much better friends, much better, parents, but much better, everything if we own our own, take kind of extreme personal responsibility. And so those are great community members. On the other hand, we have this community where if we don't serve them well, we lose big chunk of our customers all in one shot, right? So there is this incentive system where you as a community have to be good, and we as a corporation have to be good, and we then have a really great relationship as opposed to we're all doing the stuff that we're supposed to be doing. And so it's fun to see those incentive systems align. I mean, that's what life's about, is aligning incentive systems. And as we know in healthcare, they're screwed up. As we know in the monetary system, those are totally screwed up. And so if we can align incentives to the best of our abilities, then I think we have something pretty special. And we've tried really hard, and we've been really thoughtful about how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any lessons, just final thoughts on how to build a strong community? And maybe you've seen this from a few different angles, right? You've seen it through CrowdHealth. You've seen it maybe through Bitcoin meetups. I know Austin has an incredible Bitcoin community, and
Yeah, it's a great one.
that's really strong. It's almost so strong. Like I haven't seen any other cities that have replicated that yet. So maybe you have some different perspectives on what the recipe for a really strong community looks like, and how others can replicate that in whatever form of community they want to build.
Yeah, man. Wow. Deep question. I'm super blessed to be in Austin with a great community. I know Nashville's got a great community. There's some others that have really great Bitcoin communities. I mean, I think the number one thing, if you want to build a community, to be a part of a community, is authenticity. I think like I'm authentic in being go into the Bitcoin community. Like, hey, I'm a Bitcoiner. Significant, percentage of my assets are in Bitcoiners, but I'm also authentic and like I don't know 1/100th of what some of these guys up here know, and they start getting into the mechanics of how it all works and all this kind of. I'm like, man, guys, I'm a business guy. I'm not a engineer. Like I don't understand how all this stuff works on the back end, but I feel like I can still build a good business, even though I don't understand it perfectly. And so I think you just have to be authentic with people. And if people sniff out that you're not being, fully authentic, then, I don't think you can really build a good community. And so, our big groups of people who are with Crowd Health are our number one customer entrepreneurs, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I think my message comes across to other entrepreneurs as kind of an authentic message. Like, hey, this is what I mean. Like, I get this. um, Bitcoiners, right? Like I'm a Bitcoiner. We talked about that. We have people who are really pissed off at the food system. It's carnivore, keto, type of like folks, and like that's me. Like I'm keto most of the time, and so it's like I would just be authentic with who you're about, and Crowd Health customer base now looks a lot like my interest because I want to go on a podcast with you and talk about Bitcoin. Like that's fun. Like if you get me to talk about a podcast on, you know, uh, road improvement, like not my gig. Like I don't know anything about road improvements, and anytime I've gone on a podcast that's not totally aligned with who I am, it doesn't end. I mean, people can see it. Like people can see like, hey, this guy's just trying to sell a service and doesn't really care about, my community. And so it's like, just be authentic with who you are. And I think people will accept you in your community or will join you in community if you're just authentic about who you are. I think
Yeah.
the thing in our culture, especially in the United States. I know you're in Canada, so I'd be interested here. The lack of vulnerability is something that's kind of lost. Like, man, I found it just to be like, hey, look, dude, you can take me for who I am. I don't know Bitcoin as well as you do. I'm probably going to screw up in the way that I say this, or the words I use are a little bit off. But like, as long as people are willing to be like, man, I'm not good at this. Please help. I think the others want to help. I think we have an innate desire to help other people, especially when the area in which they need help fits my skill set, fits my gift, right? Like there's something innate in us that wants to do that. And so if you go to a Bitcoiner and they've got the gift of knowing how the chain works and all the, all the stuff that needs to happen to make this operate on the back end, and you're really sincere about it, they're like, man, let me tell you, like, that's my gift. That's what I've been gifted with. So let me share that with you so you can be educated. I feel valuable because I'm using my gift to help somebody. I was like, man, they're so important.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think there is that lack of vulnerability in America or broadly? It seems to be like a global phenomenon, probably.
I think I don't know. I'm not a sociologist. I think it has to do something with like the social media culture where we always have to put on our best face, our best self. I think ultimately it comes with insecurity. So we see all these people doing great things and big things and special things and have smiles on their faces and have perfect families. That makes me feel insecure. And so if I'm insecure, then I'm much less likely to tell other people what I'm not good at. And so that insecurity kind of rots you out from the inside. And you can't have any vulnerable, like real relationships with people if you're not willing to be vulnerable with people. If you go to lunch with somebody and you just tell them all the great things that are going on in your life, I don't think that there's like a real true bond there, right? If you could
Right.
say, hey, all these great things are going in life, but man, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. I think there's just a willingness to be like, okay, this is a real guy. Like he's willing to like share with me, not just like puff himself up, but like be like, I need people in my life to help me with some of these things because I'm struggling with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, my kid's not being obedient. My marriage is falling apart. My X, Y, or Z. Like, those things. I think if you can share with other human beings, like they very rarely, if you say to somebody, "Hey, I'm really having trouble in my marriage right now," somebody's been like, "Dude, you're lame, dude." Like most people, I think the majority of people, at least the people I want to hang out with, are like, "Man, let's talk about it." Like, what's going on? Like, can I help? Like, so truly have a desire to help, and that creates a bonding experience. And so that was probably like a kindergarten, level eloquence. But I just think that there's something there that if people are willing to go a little bit deeper, that there's a bonding that occurs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then maybe there's some of that's with CrowdHealth. Like I'm willing to share my healthcare expenses with somebody, like because I can't pay for it. Like I need to share it. Like there's a vulnerability of that. Um,
Right.
and maybe that's something that creates that community is like I can help you. I can use my gift to help you with something that you're struggling with, and vice versa. Like, man, those are great communities. Those are the best communities.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Like the vulnerability allows the community to exist because people are willing to share some of their problems and not just their highlight reel for Instagram. And
Yeah,
then that strength of the community kind of builds on itself when people help each other out, and it kind of like comes back and back. It's a reciprocal kind of thing.
yeah.
Um, that's very cool. You've opened my mind in this last 45 minutes. This conversation is going to be something I'm probably going to listen to this again just to kind of make sure
Oh,
I pick up all the little details of how the business model works. And
well, make
I
sure
think it's a
you
really
reach out
cool
to me if you
business.
have any clarifications for me because I'm sure my theory is probably not perfect, but it's worth another
Well,
conversation about.
yeah, I appreciate you sharing this today. Where can listeners go to learn more about you and CrowdHealth?
Yeah, for folks in the United States, join crowdhealth.com. I mean, most of your listeners who are in the US are thinking about healthcare for next year. We'd love for y'all to give us an opportunity. I think we do a really good job of loving our customers well. So join crowdhealth.com. If you're a Bitcoiner, you can use the promo code Bitcoin, and you get it for $99 for 6 months. So go and do that. That'll be awesome. We're on Twitter. Join Crowd Health is our Twitter handle. That's our most active one. Or if you want something around just our Lightning product, it's Crowd Health BTC on Twitter. So either one of those, you'll find some fun stuff around either healthcare or Lightning or both. So those are the best places to find us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time today, and hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks, man.